everyone to the Brick Stitch Fringe earring class tonight. I think you know, if you've been to any of the other classes, that for the first couple of minutes, we let everyone sign in. For a lot of people, this might be their first Zoom meeting, so sometimes there's a little bit of downtime as they figure out how to actually get in. So we use this time to say hello, and there is a chat sidebar, and that'll be an opportunity for you to actually say hello back to us so that Danielle, your instructor, can see some of your comments now. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Carmi Simicata, and I'm the marketing manager for John Bead. And tonight, I'm actually sitting in for Laura from Micheals. So I'm going to wish her a hello and thank her for the opportunity of letting me say hello to everybody tonight. So you're going to be taking our second class that Danielle is teaching for the Micheals classroom. So we're really looking forward to this one because while we consider it to be a beginner class, for a lot of people, this is a step up from the class we taught last week. So if you haven't had a chance to see the class that we did last week, I would encourage you to go watch that one too, because it's recorded and available. And I'm actually wearing the class sample from last week. So if you'd like to learn how to make these beaded bracelets, Danielle has hers on as well. And both of us are wearing the earrings that Danielle is going to teach you how to make today. So that's awesome. I also wanted to introduce you to Millie, who you won't hear, but Millie is going to be taking care of the sidebar, answering your questions on behalf of John Bead and myself. So there are a couple of us making sure that if you have questions, that you'll get an answer tonight while Danielle's teaching the class. So again, there are a few more people coming in, and we're happy to have you all. I'm going to just, yes, oh gosh, there's quite a few people coming in. So I know sometimes the sidebar gets clogged with a lot of people worrying that they missed anything. The most important thing that Danielle and I would like you to know is that we attached a PDF to your introduction to this meeting. And the PDF is a full description of everything that you're going to learn in the class tonight. So definitely take some time to download that PDF. It's a great memento of the class, and you'll have an opportunity to then make these earrings over and over again without trying to remember what you learned in the class. The other thing we wanted to encourage you to consider is seed beading is a little bit harder to teach live in a setting like this. So if Danielle was actually your instructor, she would be in a classroom with you, she would do a demonstration, and then you would go back to your table and you would try and do the same steps that Danielle had just showed you. In a live class like this, we're not going to have time to stop and wait for you to keep up with Danielle. So I would really encourage any of you who are new beaders to just sit back, relax, and watch Danielle's presentation, because if you do, you will have a much better understanding of the project PDF. And again, you'll be able to watch the recording later when you make it. And I think you'll have more fun. So without further ado, let me introduce you to your instructor, Danielle Wicks, and we'll get started on the class.
Hi, thank you everyone for joining tonight. I'm excited to teach you how to make fringe earrings, and we'll have some fun with some seed beads. And then at the end, when we get time, we would make some cards, some display cards for them. So first, to get started, I'm going to show you the materials, and then I'm going to switch to the PDF and share my screen with you and walk you through the steps. And then I'm going to go ahead and demo the steps. And so starting with the materials here. Can everybody see that? Look good? I think it's a little more light will help there. Okay. So the thread I'm using is size D beading thread. I'm using a size 10 hard beading needles. And we're going to use 4 colors of size 11 or size 10 seed beads, whichever you'd like. I'm using 10s because I thought they'd be a little easier to see, but you can use 10 or 11. and then any ear wires that you'd like. I'm using the bead landing. They come in 3 colors. Really handy little pack here. All right. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you guys the PDF document. How does that look?
Good.
There, okay. And so there's just a recap of all the materials that I've just shown you and the Micheals numbers to look them up. If you type this into the search on Micheals, it'll come right up for you. Okay, so step 1, the first part of this project is a ladder stitch. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be cutting a length of thread. I always say a wingspan, so we're talking about 36 inches. We're probably going to add thread to this project, and I'll show you how to do that too, but a wingspan is a comfortable length that won't knot easily. You'll run the beads down to about 5 inches from the tail end, and then go back through the first bead added. And so that's your first step. And then you'll come back down through the second bead added, shown here. Pick up another bead and go back in the other direction through the second bead that was added. And you'll continue that step going around and around until you have all of the beads in the pattern. And the pattern we're using today has, let's see, it's this one here, 12 strands. So we're going to ladder 12 beads total. And once you've done the ladder, we'll pick up 2 seed beads and we'll needle under the thread bridge. These are the thread bridges here. You'll see when you flip the piece up that there's a place where the thread connects these 2 seed beads, and you'll go underneath that and then come back up through this second bead that was added. And then the next step, you'll pick up 1 bead and go under the thread bridge and come back up to the same bead. So at the start of every new row, you're adding 2 new seed beads, but then it's 1 bead after that through the end. And we'll build this pattern, and then we'll add the top loop, and then we'll come down the side and add fringe. And I will switch back and forth between this and the display so that you guys can see what we have step by step as we go through it. Okay. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is clear this space here. And I wanted to share one other tip. So if you're using your own colors, you can print the pattern pages, so pages 7 and 8 of the PDF. You print them in black and white and get a Post-it. You can follow along, and then you can choose your own colors and just lay them out A, B, C, D in order as you're building, so you can keep track of where you are and what color you're using. And so that's actually what I'll be doing today. So my color A is a Sleeping Beauty size 10. And let's see, my color B is a silver lined emerald. And my color C is this really cool color. It's called Porcupine Brown, and it has an almost iris finish to it. It's really gorgeous. And then Topaz. Okay. The size 10 beading needles. I might try using this today. Let's see, for threading the needle. Wingspan of thread. These are precision scissors. Okay. Oops. There's actually 2 of them. That's really handy. There we go, and thread through there. Hope this works. I broke it. Okay. I always like to give those a try, but sometimes with the size D thread, it's a little tough. So old-fashioned way here. How's everybody doing on that? Look good? Okay. All right, so in the pattern we're using, and it doesn't matter which side you start with, I'm going to pick up 1A and 1B. And I'm going to do that loop that you saw in step 1. So here's 1A, 1B, and bring it down to the end. And I'm just leaving a short tail, just enough to weave in later, about 5 or 6 inches or so. You come back up through that first seed bead. And then back down through the second one. As I'm working, I'm usually pinching the seed beads to hold them in place. And I know that makes it a little hard to see, but I'll try to move my fingers after each stitch so you can see what I've done. I've added the 2 A and B, and then bring the pattern back over. Next, I need to add a C. And back up through the C. And so you see how mine are kind of, they're moving a little bit where they're not exactly next to each other. Don't sweat that too much. We can reinforce that at the end. And so the next pattern is C again. And back down. And then the next is a D. And then the A, back to A for the center. So this is the center of that first row. Another A.
Danielle, I'm just going to let anybody know that came in a little bit later, is that your entire pattern is in the PDF that we attach to the class. So they can definitely follow along, or they don't need to work with 4 colors. They can work with 2 colors if they like. It's just making sure that they follow your pattern, and it's about the number of beads that you're adding to this ladder.
Oh yeah, and that's a really good point. I wanted to ask, also add that if you've never done a pattern before, or brick stitch for that matter, maybe start with just doing 1 solid color, just so you can get the steps. And I'm seeing those posts there about can I do it again? Let me bring the PDF up really quick, and I'll show you guys where we are. So currently, what we've done is we've begun to ladder according to a pattern, and we've added 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 so far. So I've just added up to here, and so that's where I am at the moment. And the way the laddering stitch works is you pull about 36 inches of thread, you add 2 beads to your thread, bring them down to about 6 inches before the end, and loop back through that first bead you added. Loop back down through the second one. Then pick up a new bead and loop down through the second one you added, going the other direction. Then you'll come back around, go up that bead, and you repeat that step, adding beads until you've reached the end of the pattern. This pattern is on page 7 of the handout that we're following, and it has 12 beads in the first row. It looks like that. So I'm just following along, adding beads as I go in this direction with that ladder stitch. And let's see, closer to the camera. I saw that comment as well. Let me see what I can do about that. And see if that gets a little better there. Is that a little bit better?
That should be a little better.
Okay. The closer I go, the less likely I am to stay in frame. So you guys holler at me if I move out of there. So let's see, I just added, here's the pattern. I just added that last A. So I'm gonna go and add a D, C, C, B, A. And this gorgeous color here, this is topaz. I'm chasing the bead there. Here we go. And this step I'm doing where I pinch the beads, it makes it hard for you guys to see, but it really helps. And if you're building it at home, holding it just in your fingers between your forefinger and thumb will make all those stitches a little tighter, just a little easier to manage. But don't sweat it too much because at the end we're going to reinforce them. I'll show you how to do that. And here's C. Oops.
So the question is, what part of the earring are you building right now?
Oh, okay. So I am building, here's the finished earring, and I'm building that row, just that first row. With brick stitch, let me bring down a finished one. With brick stitch, you always start with the widest row. Even if that row is in the middle, for example, if this was a diamond shape, you'd want to start with that widest row and build up and down from that row. In the case of our pattern today, because it's just a triangle, I'm starting with the bottom. I'm just building up and up and up from there. And at the end, we come down and add the fringe.
Great. If you make a mistake with your thread while you're looping, would you recommend going back?
You mean with the pattern, getting the pattern right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so it just depends. I mean, if you want to just get the experience of building a brick stitch earring, maybe even just go random, abstract, just don't worry about the pattern, don't sweat the pattern this time and save that for the next project. It just depends if you want to take it apart or not. You can always backtrack to it. If you need to backtrack, I would recommend removing your needle from your thread and then take your needle and thread pick like that.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's going to nick itself when you go through, you know, it's going to puncture the thread and it'll actually snag and your needle won't ever come out. You'll have a very indestructible knot. You'll end up cutting the piece and starting over. I've done that before. It's hard to resist going back through it with the needle.
I think everyone's anxious to see how you go from there to the second row.
Oh yes, and I'm almost there. I've got one bead to go. One bead to go and I am done laddering. Laddering is actually the most difficult part of this entire experience. After this, it's really easy. Okay, so here's the first row, done. But you see how they're kind of wavy and wonky and they're moving around a little bit. I'm going to do something to make them tighter. I'm going to go back through each one. So you see I'm exiting that end one and go back down through this one. He tightens up really nicely, and then this way. There we go. All the way back through. And don't worry if yours is, you know, if it needs to be tightened here, or if, you know, you're wondering about the pattern, or just look at this project with the eyes of one of your friends giving it to you, and be kind to yourself like that, especially if you've never done this before. I still have one of my first seed bead projects, and you can tell it was from my early days, but I keep it because it reminds me to keep trying stuff. Yeah, and then you know things improve every time. Okay, and so I'm down to the last one here, and see how he's sideways even. But once I do this, it'll straighten out perfectly. Okay, row 1. The toughest part. And every single row after this is 1 bead shorter, so it just keeps getting faster and faster. Okay, so I'm bringing the pattern back over. I know I'm done with row 1, and now I want to do row 2. I'm gonna go A and B to start. I pick up a A bead and a B bead. And this is the part where we're gonna go under the thread bridge. And I know it's a little hard to see here, so if it's all right, I'll switch back to this really quick and show you the thread bridge. Okay, so we've picked up A and B, and we're going to go under the second thread bridge. That's the one joining the second and third bead here. And then we're going to go back up through that second bead. So under, and pull, and then back up through the second bead. There we go. And so you see how those beads just sit right on top of the ones before?
Yep.
And so the next bead in my pattern is a C. So pick up a C and go under the third thread bridge. So that's that, the one next to the one we just used. And pull, and you only add 1 bead after you start each row. It's 2 rows to start, or sorry, 2 beads to start each row, and then 1 bead for each after until you get to the end. Okay, there's that, and then another C. There we go.
It's amazing how they start stacking up so nice.
They do, and it really, as you work and work on, it starts to become really fun because every row is faster, and then you start to see the pattern come out, and the pattern is really pretty. It's got these little 3 stars over a mountain. That's kind of what I was going for with that. I'm wishing I'd made the stars gold now, but it's too late. I can change that for the next one. And for anyone that joined late, there was a tip that I mentioned earlier, was printing the pattern pages in black and white. And it's a trick that I got from a looming artist long ago, but she's like, yeah, print my pattern in black and white and then color it in with colored pencils with the colors you're using. Or just lay your beads out A, B, C, D and follow along that way. And I really liked that. So that's how I've been working with this one.
I do see a couple of people are actually beading along with you. I
Oh
see
yeah.
some arms moving as they stretch out the beading thread. Oh, I got a big smile. I see you, Mon. you're definitely doing the project along with Danielle, so that's really nice.
I would love to see what everyone is making. If you guys want to post and tag later, it would be great to see that. And so I'm just following along that pattern that's on the on page 7 of the handout. And I'll get to the end of this row.
I think we should just tell people that once they get through one pair of earrings, the second pair will go so much faster. Probably by the time they get to the third pair, they won't follow a pattern anymore. They'll know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. You'll memorize it. And you can make your own too. The software I use to create these is called Bead Tool 4. But you can also just use graph paper to do your fringe design. And A. Okay, so this is the last bead in my second row. Okay, so there's 2 rows done. And so would you guys like me to do one more row or switch to showing you how to put the top on and the fringe? We're at about 5:28. We could 5-minute another row if everyone wants to see that one more time.
I think you should just do one more row.
Okay.
And then we'll show the top.
Great.
Someone just mentioned that they made the bracelet project, and by the 4th one, it went very quickly. So definitely with this earring project and with working with small seed beads, the first one takes the longest, but you'll get very quick.
Yes, for sure. And I saw someone ask, the name of the software I'm using is Bead Tool 4. There's lots of different programs out there. It's by no means the only one. It just happens to be the one I've got. And it's pretty good. I like it. So I'm switching to row 3 here. I use a Post-it to keep track of where I am. So let's see. There's 2 A's. And so do you notice on this one how he's kind of, this bead is kind of sitting up a little bit? If you see that happening on yours and you want to fix it, you can go back down through the bead you added. It's not required. And in fact, I think when you put the next row on, it would straighten out anyway. But if you wanted to, you could go down and then back up through the second bead. This is kind of like we did in the ladder row to tighten it. You can do that at the starting of your rows, and it gives it a really professional look. Everything's really tight. It comes at the trade-off of having a lot of an additional thread pass through your beads. So if you're using 11s, you can consider maybe, you know, giving a test of your thread to see if you can get it, because we'll need to go through that a 3rd time. But I think it'll be okay. I'm using 10s today. And so then my pattern has called for a C next. So I picked up a C. Here we go. And another C. And so under the thread bridge and pull. and up through the same bead. And then it wants 2 Ds. So I'm going to add 1 D. And then a C. Another C. Let's see, and 2 A's.
Danielle, if you were working at your regular speed, how long would it take you to make a pair of earrings?
Oh, less than an hour well, maybe a little over an hour for a pair. Definitely less than an hour to make one. And also depending on how long of fringe I'm going for, because when you start adding fringe, you'll go through your thread really fast and you'll find yourself adding thread.
Got it.
Time consuming process there, but it's so beautiful when it's done. It's just so worth it.
Okay, so just watching our time, I think we should go to imagine you've done all the rows and now you need to add that top loop.
Okay, yeah, let's switch to that. And so the same process that I just demonstrated was done for each of those. And with each one, you're adding 1 less bead, so it keeps getting faster and faster. Really nice. And then for the top row, I'll show you guys the PDF one more time. Okay. We're going to pick up 4 beads, either 10s or 11s, whichever you're using, and come back down through the bead that's on the other side. So we're going to skip the center bead and come down through the one that's on the other end. And then we're going to pick up the thread bridge that's underneath that bead. Come back up through all the C beads again. Over on that side, we're going to pick up that thread bridge. Come back all the way through it again. So here's what that looks like. Got the 4. All the way down. I always think that looks so cute. There's a little loop there. And so to get under the thread bridge, I always just kind of go in between those 2 beads. And turn it over. And back up through the one that we just picked up the thread bridge under, and then through all 4 of the beads we added before. And bear with me here, I lost my needle. Okay. Okay, so there's through all 4. Almost. All 4 there. Okay, and now I'm on that other side. Go down through that bead. And pick up the thread bridge under that. I'm just going to go through those 2 seed beads in between them. Because that thread bridge it's sort of hidden. You can't totally see it. So just between those 2 beads and you'll have it. And pull through. And flip it over. And go back up. Okay. Now before I go further, I'm going to show you guys the next step. So now I just finished looping back through and I'm here. I'm going to travel all the way down this arm to start adding fringe. Okay. And so fringe patterns. Now on this one, I've done, it shows about 20 here, but I actually added 30 on this pair. 30, and I did a straight row for this pair, but on some of the other ones I would go 30 and then 32 and then 34, 36. You can do whatever you like, play with it and see what length you'd like for your earring, and you can always remove the fringe and try again. We'll make a few strands, and they're very easy to pull out. I can show you how to do that while you're working, but I'm going to go ahead and just very quickly grab 30 of these. Or maybe I'll do 20 just to make it a little shorter.
I think people will be surprised at how easy it is to add fringe.
It's beautiful. It's fun. So there's what 20 looks like. And so to give you an idea of the difference, there's 20. And of course, these are size 11s, so you'll notice these are a little smaller, but I could go another 15 maybe to get a length that I like. But I want to see what it would look like a little shorter. So maybe I'll just go with this. Okay, so I just added the 20. Bring your last bead down, skip it, come back up through all those beads we just added. And you don't have to do it all at once. You can go through some and then pull your thread and go through some. And I pull till just about there. And then I've got a little trick for making it tight. This is the thread I'm pulling currently, and this is the one I just added the bottom bead to. I pinch the bottom bead and pull like that. And hold your hand over it and flatten it a little bit. And there you go. And so after you've done that, come back down through the next bead.
That extra thread there is your tail from the very, very beginning.
From the beginning, and I could weave him in now, but I'm hanging on to him just in case, because at the end, if I need one more fringe strand, I might be able to use him. It might save me adding thread one more time, but I'm waiting to see, and if I don't need him, I'll just weave him in. And 7, 8, 9, 10. Sometimes the, so between, like, for example, silver lined and opaques are always bigger. Doesn't matter what type of seed bead you're using, but I noticed that those are, they tend to, maybe they have another extra coating on them, but you'll need more of these to make the same length of that. So there's 10.
Danielle, someone's asking about tension for the fringe, because if it's too tight, it'll look odd. And like, how do you make sure that it will swing nicely?
Oh, well, I'll show that little trick again. To get it just right, you don't, of course you don't want it to be too tight, but you don't want to have that little gap either. And especially if you're working with a you know, a thread that's not a plasticized thread, you don't have to worry about it being like that too much. I would say I'd be more worried about having a gap when I'm using this kind of thread than I would be if I was using a plasticized one. It will probably be loosen over time also. Okay, so I just went through those and go through that bead. And here's that little trick again to get that tension right. So once you get to, let me get my tail out of the way, sorry guys. Okay, so once you get to about that much left, grab that bottom bead, pinch it, and hold, and start to pull. And see my thumbnail put just enough space there. And I'll show you, I'll weave it. They're pretty movable. This is only a 20 strand, but another idea, just talking about fringe in general, if you want it to be tight but still move, you can add weight. And adding weight is super helpful because it'll take anything and just make it move a lot more. This is one that I used, it's size 10. There's 35 beads in the strand. And then I went with an 8 and a 6 and an 8, and then a little size 10 bead looped at the bottom and came all the way back up. See, that extra weight just gives it some swing. You can really get crazy by putting, you know, different things here at the bottom. Anything you like, anything you have in your bead stash that you want to try. You can just make that design your own. And so would you guys like to see more strands done here?
Just watching our time, Danielle, obviously people want to know, how does it go from this point now, once you've added all your fringe, to actually being wearable as an earring? How do you attach the earring wire?
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I'll show you, and just really quick for weaving in your thread, when you get to the end, all you have to do to weave it in is go up through a few beads, come down through a few beads, pick up a thread bridge, come up, come down, do that once or twice, trim it, and you've got it. So adding ear wires, let's see. And I showed this at the beginning. I'm just going to show it really quick one more time. This is what I'm using. I got one of these packs that has all the different colors in it. And I thought with the bronze that I would like to do this color. So, and you'll need chain nose pliers. And once you've got your chain nose pliers, you just want to laterally open them up here. And then close it. And then I tighten it.
There's a lot of ear wires in that package. You could make quite a few presents.
Yeah, for sure. And they fit really nicely too. They have a nice, big enough loop that you can get the seed beads to move freely. They move nicely like that.
That's great. Danielle, I want to make sure before we leave, people are wondering, because you did mention it, what would happen if they ran out of thread as they were doing all the fringe?
Oh yeah, I can show you really quick adding thread, but it's the same process as weaving in. You would take a new strand. There you go. There you go. And it doesn't really matter where you come in from, but if your goal is to get to where you left you would take off your needle from the old thread, leave your old thread in place and weave to it. So enter the work anywhere you'd like and leave just a tiny tail because we're going to trim that right away. Go down through maybe 1 or 2 more beads. Sorry about that.
If you start with a 36-inch a wingspan that you called it of thread, would you definitely have to at least do this once, or do you think you would finish the earrings with that one piece of thread?
Probably you'll be adding thread 1 time. With this number of strands, and if you do between 30 and 40 beads in each fringe, you'll add thread 1 time, most likely. But you could always try to work with more. I just think the propensity to get a knot is really high, and knots are harder to fix than and more time consuming than just adding thread as you go. But see, this one's already pretty tight, and I've only gone through a few beads, but just to be sure it's nice and tight, I'll keep going. And I'll change direction. Oops, I'm getting him tangled in my fringe, sorry guys. Okay. I'm going back down. But there's no real requirement for where you even. It's just kind of like what's the most, turns you can get. 2 turns and you've got a locked thread. And there we go. So if that was my next fringe spot, I'm there.
Great. And that's adding in the thread when you run out.
And
Perfect.
so once you've done that and it's tight, because you'll know because you'll pull on this and see this is the tail of the one I just added. And you pull on him, it's not moving. So it's okay to just come up here and put some weight on it. See, I'm actually lifting it a little bit and push down with the scissors, trim, and the thread will disappear into the bead. You can roll it too like this, just kind of make sure that it disappeared. Rolling it's kind of like doing this with your fingers over the beads. They'll spin in this stitch.
Great.
I hope that answered it. Do we have time to make earring cards really quick? What do you think?
Danielle, you've got about 5 minutes. I think if you want to show people how you would give these earrings either as a gift or for sale, what you would do at this point.
Yeah, so what I would do, let's see, I'm going to move this out of the way really quick. I made this card with cardstock from Micheals, and using their earring punch tool, it's let's see, a little bit. It looks like this. It's a really simple punch to make a card. If you get one of these sliding tools, which you can use this to cut your paper to size. And that way it'll fit whatever box you want, or I sometimes put them in an envelope and then tuck those into a padded mailer, like a really decorative envelope, and put a nice sticker on it. And here's some cards I cut earlier.
This is a great personalization.
Yeah, and if you have like a business card, you can also punch a business card.
That's cute.
Super cool, super indie looking. Everything. Bells and whistles.
That's great. Well, we're doing great for time, Danielle. I'm just going to ask everyone who's at home and watching if they have any last questions for you. I'm going to remind you that the class has been recorded, so you'll be able to watch it more than once. It will be on the Micheals site tomorrow. Okay. Well, I think we've done great for timing. So happy to see that done. Next week, Wednesday, we have another awesome class. So I don't know, do you have your sample?
I do, yeah. I'll switch back. Um,
So,
this is just a bracelet version of the lanyard.
so we're going to teach you how to do a lanyard. And in order to make it quicker, Danielle's going to have it done as a bracelet. But this is the stitch that you will be learning. And this is an intermediate class. Right, Danielle?
I would say so. I'm thinking the stitch itself is pretty beginner, but I've added a step that locks these so they don't move. Some people will recognize this as just spiral rope. Spiral rope where you have a core beads and you're looping around, but I locked them together so they kind of snake over it. And so it adds one layer of complexity, which might make it more intermediate, but completely doable, completely fun. It has beading wire inside, so it's very strong. Great for a lanyard, great for badge holding. Even as a bracelet, you can make an anklet because this is not going to stretch.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we've done great for time, Danielle. So again, thank you so much for everything. And we're hoping that anyone who made the bracelet from last week is still tagging Micheals and giving us an opportunity to see your work. We definitely want to see it, and we'd love to see the results of the earring class tonight. And we're very much looking forward to our third class. So we're Wednesday nights, so we have 2 more classes to go. We're pretty excited about the 4th class, which was also announced and is on the site. And that will be a brick stitch hoop earring class. And so hopefully you'll get a chance to tune in for the next 2. Danielle, you're getting a lot of wonderful thank you notes from everyone who tuned in tonight. And again, on behalf of John Bead, thank you so much for watching. I'd like to thank Laura again from Micheals for inviting us to teach the class. And we'll see you in a week. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.